Hi everyone, welcome back to another session of Azure DevOps training. In this session, we are going to learn about work items in Azure DevOps board. So let's have a look at the agenda. We'll start with what is a work item, and then moving forward, we'll see what are the types of work items that are available in Azure boards. And then we'll see what are the fields that are available in a work item. And then we'll see what do you understand by history of a work item. We'll also check out that what is a link and attachment in work item. And then moving forward, we'll also check how can you add a new field to our work item. All right. So I'll just move ahead to my Azure DevOps board and let's just get started with work item. So this is my Azure board. And again, I'm hoping that you have already created an organization, you already have a project in place, you have created a team, and you have already added few members in the team. All right. So now this is the organization that I'm working on, and this is my project. If I click on the project, I have already created a team here, and in that team, I have added 2 members. All right, these are the 2 members. So now going back to the project, and let's switch to boards. On the left panel, you can click on the boards option. Okay, so if you click on the boards option, you have something called new work item here. Okay, and if I click on this, just observe the options that I have over here. The options are epic, issue, and task. So in the previous session, we understood that what is the meaning of epic, what do we understand by issue, and what is the meaning of task. Okay, epic is the bigger chunk of a requirement. Issue is something that when you break down epic into smaller pieces, then you can call them issues, right? And then again, if you break down issues into more granular level, then you can call them task. Okay, so all these options that you're seeing, right, it depends on what kind of process I have actually selected when I was creating this project. Okay, so let me quickly show you. I'm telling you all these things because depending on the kind of process that you select when you're creating a project, your work item options will actually depend on that. Okay, so this is the project, and if I go to project settings, in the overview here you can see the process is basic, right? So if you remember, in Azure DevOps, we have 4 processes. Okay, we have basic, we have agile, then we have something called CMMI, and then we have something called scrum. Okay, so the basic process gives you these 3 options. Okay, let me go back to here. These 3 options that you can, in a basic process, you can create an epic, you can create an issue, and you can also create a task. But this does not mean that a basic process is actually restricting you to have more work items. Let's say in your project, whatever you're working on, they tell you that, you know what, this is now how we are categorizing our requirements or user stories, but they are categorizing into more number of work items. Then there is a way to add more number of work items over here as well. So don't worry about that. I'm going to show you all of that. But now let's first understand that what are the fields that we have in the work item. Okay, so if I go back here, then types of work item, we saw that in basic process we have these 3 types of work item, right? And I'll also show you that what are the work items that are available in different processes. But let's first understand that what are the fields in a work item. Okay, so I will click on the boards again, and I'm going to open one of the work items for you, and I'll show you what are the fields that are available. Okay, so in this board, if you see this icon, right, that means this is an epic, the epic that I've created, right? So the work item type is epic for this particular piece. Okay, and if I switch to issues, here you can see if I hover on this, it is telling me that it is an issue. Whatever you have created here, it is an issue, right? And similarly, if I click here, you can see these are tasks, right? If I hover over here, it is telling me these are tasks. So these 3 things are different work items of a basic process. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and open any of these. So let me just start by epic. So basically any kind of work item, right? Let it be epic, let it be issue, or let it be task. The most of the fields are common in all of those things. Okay, so let me open this one and show you. So this is a work item which is epic. Okay, now if I go here, so fields in work item. Okay, so these are all fields. For example, state, reason, area, iteration, description, discussion, priority, start date, target date, and this assigned to box. Okay, and then add tag. These are the fields that we have available in this particular work item, so that anybody who opens this work item, they will understand each and everything, what is the expected like, requirement and what is the priority, or let's say like, when this particular work item is supposed to get started and when should be like, what is the deadline when it is supposed to get completed. So anybody who actually opens a work item, they should be able to see each and every detail related to that work item. Okay, so that is how basic number of fields are given here, which is actually sufficient, or you can say more than enough, in order to get the details of a work item. But again, if you want to add more fields, you will be able to do so. Okay, we will see that, like, see all of that in the upcoming discussion. All right, so let's just start with this. So this first field is called state, to do. So this shows that what is the status of this particular work item. Okay, to do means that, like, this has just been listed, but nobody has started working on it. Okay, so once someone starts working on it, they will change the status to doing. Okay, and once this particular piece is completed, this requirement development is completed, they will move the status to done. Okay, so again, another question is that, is this limited to only these three options? No, you can add more number of options to the status field over here, right? Because let's say if you have created a requirement, and in that requirement, once the development team is, let's say, like, the functional team is working on it, right? So they will only keep this particular item into to do, and once that user story or that requirement is approved, right, they will mark the status at that, like, ready for the development. And then once the development team picks it, they can basically, they should be able to move the status of the story to either doing, or let's say if you want to keep some other name, for example, like you want to keep it as in development or in progress. So if you want to create such kind of options in the status field, then you should be able to do that, right? And once the development team has already done the development, right, and once, let's say, your quality analysis team, they start testing the user story, then there should be another option here, right, which actually says that the story is in queue or something like that, right? So this options, this particular list of option is not limited. You can basically add much more to it. So for now, just only understand that what is the fundamental behind all of these. So state will actually tell you the status of the work item, that what status is it on to. Okay, and then area is that you can see that this is showing me that this particular, the area of this work item is this project. Okay, and then iteration is something that it tells you that which iteration of your project this particular work item belongs to. Let's say if your project is actually working in sprint 2, right, the current sprint which is running is sprint 2, and if this particular work item is supposed to be tagged to sprint 2, then you will not keep it under sprint 1, right? You will actually click here, and you will also see the sprint 2 option here, and you can select sprint 2. So basically, for every sprint, there would be a specific set of requirements which would be decided, right? That, okay, these are the requirements, specific requirements, which are supposed to get completed in sprint 2. So all the requirements that you would be creating for sprint 2, you would be adding all, tagging all of those requirements for sprint 2, right? And this reason is added to the backlog, because we created this particular epic in the backlog first. All right, and then here we have something called add tag. Let's say if you want to mention anything which is not there in the feed, or you want to identify something from this, let's say functionality wise, then you can add a tag. For example, if I have created this particular epic for, let's say, sign in functionality, so I would just say sign in module. Okay, something like this. You can add multiple tags here. Okay, how many, whatever you want, you can just keep on adding here, and it shows 0 comments because there is no discussion that has happened to this epic right now. Okay, and the first one is the title. So here, you can put any title, but this is limited to 255 characters. So if you want to add any more details, then you have to add in the description and not in the title. Title should be very clear and crisp. Okay, so here if I say sign in functionality or something like that. Okay, and here in the description you can add more details, features, so that any developer who will open this particular work item, they will understand that what are the things that they need to build, right? So you can just mention anything here, right? You can mention point 1, point 2, basically you can specify that what are the things that are supposed to happen. Okay, so login form, and then you can say something as forgot password, or reset password, or any anything, whatever you want. You can basically add more details over here. All right, So this is about description, and the discussion tag is, let's say a developer has already started working on this requirement. Now he has some questions. There is something which is written here, but the developer is not clear about that. If he has any confusion, then he can drop a note to the functional team, right? To the business analyst who has basically written this story, right? And they can ask that, that I have this query and I have this doubt, what did you mean by this and what are we supposed to do about it? So all you have to do is you have to put at the rate, and then you will be able to tag that particular person from the functional team. Okay, and then once you tag them, you can drop any comment here. Okay, and the moment you save it, right, this particular person is going to receive an email notification that somebody has commented on this particular epic item number 8. Okay, so that they can open this particular item and then they can respond you back. All right, so this is the meaning of discussion tab over here. And priority is something that you basically decide depending on how important this requirement is. If this is on high priority, that if the client says, what, this should be completed first and this should be picked first among every other requirement that you have in that particular sprint, right? So if this is on high priority, then you will mark it as 1. If this is on the lowest priority, if they say that what, it's okay, you can build it at the last, then you can mark it as priority 4. And if it's in the middle, then you can mark it as either 2 or 3 depending on the criticality of this particular item. Okay, and then start date is something that when you actually start the development, that is the date that you should actually put the start date over here. So because see, this particular item could be created today, but let's say if somebody has started working on it after 5 days, right? So they should put that start date, so that just by seeing that date, you will at least understand that when was the development started on this, right? And target date is the deadline, because whenever somebody will create this particular work item, they will put a deadline here, that for example when this should get completed. They might say that what, we need to complete this before 19th. So they will put a target date, so that anybody who starts working on it, they will have this in mind, that what, this is the deadline and before this it should be completed. All right, so these are the basic fields. Now, a history of work item. Okay, now let's say if you want to, let's say if somebody has opened this particular work item and then they change something. Okay, some change has been done, or maybe you just want to know that who has created this story, or who developed this story, or let's say who moved this story from to do to doing. Let's say I'm changing this state. Okay, and let me save this. Now just imagine that, because multiple people will be working on this, right? Working as in there would be somebody who would have written this work item, somebody who is doing development on this work item, someone who is actually performing testing on this work item, right? But then let's say if you open this work item and if you see that the status has been changed, and if you want to know that who changed the status, right, which user changed the status, so you can go to the history tab and you can actually check that who changed the status. And this is the history tab, the clock that you're seeing here. If you click on this, it will actually show you the history. So you can see that it was added by this person on this date, and it was added to backlog, and then it was put into to do state, and then it was moved to doing state by this person on this date. Okay, so this is how you can track who has done what change. Okay, and also every change that you do, that is also going to be tracked over here. Okay, because I don't have a lot of changes here, but let's say if there are a lot of changes that has happened here, everything will be actually tagged over here. Okay, so these are the basic fields. And then what's next, that is how you actually track the history and link and attachments. Okay, now let's say you have, I'll go back to the details. Let's say you have given the description and everything, you have completed your work item, but just imagine that there is some other work item which is related to this work item. Okay, if your team leader tells you that what, there is another developer who is working on another piece of requirement, and you have to coordinate with that person because your requirement and the other requirement is connected. Okay, maybe one is dependent on the other one, right? So in such cases, just for your own just to keep it easy for you, you can basically link this work item to that work item. Basically, when two work items are dependent on each other, then you can link it. Or maybe let's say if this work item was created for sprint 1, but there was something that happened, like, that this particular work item went on hold. There was something which was not clarified, and the client said, you know what, we cannot give the clarification right now, so let's not complete this work item in sprint 1, but you can complete this, you can take up this work item in sprint 2, maybe, like, after 2 weeks, and by then we will have the enough clarification on this. So just because now you had already created this particular work item and you had tagged it to sprint 1, but you would be creating another work item in sprint 2, right? Either you can create another work item in sprint 2, or you can update work item here itself, right? But I'm just giving an example right now. Let's say you have created another work item in sprint 2 because you don't want to update this one, because you would have spent some time here, right? And you don't want to basically show that, show that this particular work item got only started in sprint 2, so that is the reason that you want to keep this copy in sprint 1, so that everybody, whoever actually opens it, they will understand, okay, you know what, this whole thing started in sprint 1, but due to some reason your developer did spend time on this, but due to some blocker this did not get completed, and that is why the same story was created in sprint 2, so that you can track the effort, right, that how much time was actually spent on this. So let's say now you're creating the same work item in your sprint 2, but then you also want to tell anybody who actually opens this particular work item which is created for sprint 2, you want to link it to this particular item, right? You want to link both the work items, so that anybody who opens that particular work item, they will understand, oh, you know what, there's another work item which is actually linked to it. So maybe you know what, I mean, they can open that particular work item, and then they will understand the whole thing, that, okay, you know what, okay, this started in sprint 1, but they can go to the discussion, they can see, they can check the history, okay, this was on hold because there was a blocker, and that is the reason that another work item is created in sprint 2. Okay, so any kind of thing that you want to link, right? Any could be any existing work item, or if you want to create a new work item, any kind of link that you want to provide, you can provide from here. This is the link icon over here, right? So you can come here and you can provide that. And you can see here, right, that you can create more number of issues here, or you can also create more task over here, right? Because here, if you click here, see, you can see existing item and new item. So let me show you. If you click on new item, here you can see, right, that it is showing you that what kind of work item do you want to create and link to this particular epic, right? You can create an issue, or you can create a task. So these options will be available to you, right? And how this is how you can link one work item to another work item. All right, so this was about the link. The next thing is about the attachment. Now let's say for this particular requirement, you have an Excel sheet, okay, or any PowerPoint or any kind of document that you have, and you want to provide that document to the development team, right? Or any other team, and you have to tell them that, you know what, this is the required data that we have. And when you are, like, testing the requirement, or when you're developing the requirement, you have to refer to this particular sheet. So where will you be attaching that document? For that, you have this attachment section where you can actually attach the document. Okay, so here you can click on add attachment, and then you will be able to attach any kind of document that you want to attach. All right, so these are the history, links and attachments. All right, and also if you want to follow this user story, you can click on follow button. So if anybody changes anything on the user story, even if they are updating the priority, start date, target date, or if somebody is commenting something, or if someone is actually updating the description, or the state is getting changed, any kind of change that happens onto this particular work item, you will get a email notification if you follow this. Okay, so this is all about work item. Now let me just show you something very quickly, that how you can actually add new work item, right? That is what we discussed. So for example, if I click on boards, let me go here. This is what I was telling you about, that you only have epic, issue and task. But let's say if you want to add something new into this new work item, into this, work item list, then how will you do it? Okay, so for that, you have to go back to the organization. Okay, not the project, but you have to go back to the organization, because whatever changes you're keep that in mind, that whatever changes you're going to do, right? For example, that they have 3 options available, but whatever extra option that you are planning to add here, right, that option is not only be going to be available for you, because this is If you remember, this is coming from the process that you have selected, right? But let's say if someone has created some other project, this is demo project 1, right? But let's say somebody else, like, from your project, some other thread is going on, someone else has created another project and they have also selected process as basic, right? So when they click on here, they will also be seeing extra work items, right? And what if they don't want those extra work items, right? So that is why, like, they, first of all, you cannot make these changes at project level. That's the point that I'm trying to make, right? So you should be aware that whatever changes you're doing, right, you would be doing at the process level, and everybody else who has created another projects in the same organizations, they should be aware and they should be aligned of these changes. Okay, so I will go back to the organization, because that particular option of adding work item and all of those things are available under organization or not project. Okay, so I'm on this organization and I'll click on organization settings. But first, before that, let me show you that what is the process for this particular project. Okay, it's basic. Okay, so now I'm going back to the organization settings, and here if you scroll down, you have under boards, you have something called process. Okay, so these are 4 processes that I was telling you, that 4 processes that are available. Okay, basic, agile, scrum, and CMMI. Now, first things first. So you cannot make any changes to the standard process that they have defined. For example, if I click on basic, okay, I clicked on basic and it is showing me that what are the work items that are available: epic, issue, and task. These are also something that you get to know once, like, depending on the kind of work item that you have created. So this does not show up directly on the work item list, but it is there as a work item under basic. Okay, so but let's say now here you want to add a new work item, but there is no other option available here, right? There is no new option. And let's say if in the epic I want to create another field, right? But these are the fields, right? Priority, start date, target date, related work, planning, and description. These are the fields that we actually saw on the work item, right? But I see this is disabled for me, right? I cannot change anything here. So what is the reason? The reason is that this is, like, the standard things, and you will not be able to make changes here. But if you want to make changes to this particular process, you need to create another. So you can click on here and you can select this option, create inherited process. Okay, so for example, I have created this one. So but let me show you by creating one more. Okay, so I'll say my basic process 2 or something like that. Okay, and create process. Now if I go here, okay, you can see this option is available for me now, right? If I click on new work item, then I can create another new item here, right? I can create something as user story. Okay, and then I can select an icon here, icon color, and then create. Okay, this is a, now it is asking me to select a field. Okay, but let's just, like, hold on, add a field. Let me add something as effort, and this should be an integer. Okay, and let me add this field. Okay, this is already there, right? So let me cancel this, and I just want to show you that how to create a new field. So let me think of something else. For example, um mm, duration or something like that. Okay, I'm hoping duration is not there. Let me also keep it as integer and add field. All right. Okay, so I have added one extra field. All right, so now if I, and just keep in mind that where I have done it. Okay, all processes under basic process, I have created my own custom process, and in that I created one extra work item called user story. Okay, so let me go back to all processes. Now this is the process, and here I have created this particular work item, right? So now if I use this particular process for my project, right, that demo project, then I should be able to see that option of user story. Correct? Till now we have only been seeing epic, issue, and task, right? But I should be able to see user story as well, right? So let me set it at default. Okay, and now let's just go back. Let me refresh once. Okay, open this project. I'll go to boards. All right, let me refresh this. Okay, I think the process did not change. So let me, so see, the process is still basic, right? So let me just quickly create another project and we'll see that if it is available on the new project or not. And I'm going to, hold on, let me first see. So you need to, so this is another point that you have to keep in mind, okay, that you will not be able to change the process, right? So you need to first define the process and then create the project, because I don't see any other option of actually changing the process. Okay, let me try again. I have not done it before, but no, there's no edit option for the process, right? So once you have created the project, you have like, whatever the standard process you had, you have it, right? So that is why you first should be like, clear on like, what should be the process, and then you can actually go and create the project and select that process. Okay. So, and also just trying to think that if there's another way of doing it. No, you can't. Okay. So let me go back to the organization and quickly create another project for you. Okay. New project demo. All right. And let's just keep it public here now, because this is the process where I have added extra work item, right? So I'm going to keep this one and create it. All right, so now let's go to the board and click on here. Here you can see, right? This is the work item that I had created, right? And if I click on this, let it load, it's taking some time. Here, okay. So you can see the custom field that I created, right? Duration. These are the standard fields that will come, right? But, and also like, you cannot see other fields, because other standard fields also you can drag and drop, okay? You can add that as well. But this is the custom field that I created that you're seeing here, right? I had given it as integer value. So I can give any integer value here, okay? And like, you can enter the title, you can enter like, who this particular work item, like, user story is assigned to, and you can see there are 0 comments. You can add a tag, you can see like, the area, like, which project does it belong to. And here I have, there is only one sprint, like, which is created by default. That is why it is available. Okay. So you can select this iteration, like, sprint 1. Reason is like, the state is moved to, I mean, this is something that gets picked up by default. Then we have status, where you can actually like, whenever you move this. Okay, all right, so here status, you would have to add it, right? Because the statuses that you were seeing, those were by default available for epic, task, and issues. All right, so don't worry, this we will have a separate session for this. Okay, I don't want to cover each and everything in just one session, because otherwise, like, you would have to a lot of things, like, you would have to keep into one session, and I mean, it's not a very clear way of learning. So I think the only thing that you should be learning from this particular video is how to add a new work item, okay, and how to add a custom field. And again, like, if I revise everything, in order to add a new work item, you can do that from the organization settings and not from the project settings, okay? And once you go to the organization settings, you need to scroll down and you need to go to the process. And once you go to the process, you need to select that process, whatever you are using in your project. Okay, if this is the process that I'm using in my project, then on this process I'm going to add extra work item. If I click on it, I can add a extra work item here, right? If I click on it, then I can add extra field here, right? See, new field, I can add an extra field, right? So, and similarly, if you want to see all the standard fields that are available in these processes, you can see that. If I click on basic, and let's say if I click on epic, then you can see all the fields that are available for when you actually create an epic. Okay, and moving back to all the processes, if you want to see like, what actually happens in agile, what are the options that are available in agile, just click on agile, and these are the work items that in a standard way these are available on an agile process, right? So if you already want these things to be available in your project, like, in your project work item, then you should rather choose agile, like, rather than choosing basic process, right? Because if your project is following like, agile, then these are the things that will be very common to your project, right? Then you should like, better choose agile and not the basic process, because then you don't have to create a lot of extra custom work items, right? So, and then again, like, let's say if I go on user story in Agile, then these are the fields that are available, like, already available for me. And again, you can see that I'm not getting any option to add a new field, or also I'm not getting an option to add extra work item. Why? Because this is the standard tab, right? You need to create a custom one, and then you would be able to add a new work item. And let's say, like, when you're creating a work item as bug, and let's say if you want to add one extra, if you think that these fields are not enough to justify the information of a defect or a bug, and you want to add some extra field, then you can add an extra field. Okay, so this is how you add an extra field and an extra work item depending on the process that you have selected for your project. Okay, I think we have covered most of the things that I had planned for this session. So in the next session we can probably, like, learn more about that. What do we have, like, when do we actually choose a basic process, an agile process, a scrum process, or a CMMI process? So I will um, create a video on the difference of these four processes. Okay, so if, let's say, if you are the admin in your Azure DevOps team, and you have to set up all these things, and, like, create and set up the project and set up the process and everything, then of course, like, you should be knowing that, like, based on your requirement, which process you should be choosing, correct? Because you already saw, right, that we were not able to change the process on a created project, right? So if you already have these kind of clarifications, then you will not basically hop on to, like, creating a project first, and then you will realize, oh no, like, this process is not enough for the details that I want to put in the project. And then you will, like, again go back, delete the project, create another project, and then you will choose the right process, right? So I'm going to create a session just to explain all, like, the differences between these four processes, so it will be more clear to you. Okay, but for now, that's all in a work item, and then how to add a field and how to add a new work item in any of the available processes in Azure DevOps. Okay, so I'll see you in the next session, and thank you for watching.